Happy Hour on this Friday, and joining me tonight is our chief producer Jenny Churchill and Evan McMorris-Santoro, reporter and blogger for Talking Points Memo.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me, guys. Happy Friday. You know, we've spoken a few end of the world theories on the show before, especially when everyone thought that the rapture was coming, but the theories never died down, and especially because we haven't gotten to 2012 yet. And so now here's a new one that apparently people are just going crazy over online. Take a look.
Okay, look at the Earth distance, 1.812. Helios right now getting nearer to us by 300,000 miles per day. In about a week, that number is going to be 400,000 miles per day, and it's going to continue to increase. You're going to see more and more volcanoes going off. That's your sign to wake people up. You have 33 volcanoes erupting right now in the Earth, and that number is going to continue to go up as we move along in the timeline.
Vote on the news, and here's the winner. There's a huge hidden heavenly body right here in our solar system. Evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper, The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
It's been almost 10 years since little Pluto was demoted from being a planet, but today scientists from the California Institute of Technology have announced that they finally have solid evidence for a planet X, a true 9th planet on the edge of our solar system.
It is believed to be far beyond the orbit of Pluto, roughly the size of Neptune, with a mass 10 times that of Earth.
There are things out there, little icy objects that are orbiting in a funny way, and nobody was quite sure why. It seemed like there might be something with gravity pulling on them, but nobody quite understood. And finally, these scientists that you talked about took a really hard look at it, did simulations, calculations, and they came up with the explanation. It probably is this giant planet.
I think I read somewhere it orbits the sun every 10,000 to 20,000 years.
Right.
Is that why no one has seen it to this point?
No, that's not why. It's because it's so dim. It's so far away that even though it's big, it's very, very dim, and it'd be very tough to spot with a telescope.
I'm also fascinated at the idea that this planet could be so far out there and still our sun be the mass that is keeping it in the gravitational pull of our solar system.
Right, yeah, but no, it's true.
That's incredible. And so there was a thought at one point from scientists that when they thought that there was something beyond Pluto, that it might have been all the massive objects floating in the Kuiper belt, but it's not.
Right, so all those objects are out there and they have a lot of mass, and originally the scientists said, look, a planet is such a crazy idea, maybe it's the Kuiper belt itself that's pulling it on itself and making these orbits look funny.
And when we talk about the mass of this planet X, this 9th planet, being 10 times that of Earth, for those who are not scientists, what does that really mean, the mass of a planet versus Earth's mass?
Well, if you could put it on a scale, how much it would weigh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. And so it's bigger, it's bulkier, it's got more heft, it's got more gravity. It's this huge elephant in the living room, except we didn't know it was there.
You mentioned that scientists haven't seen it yet because of how far away it is and how dim it is. Is there a way for them to get visual evidence?
Yes, so the biggest telescopes in the world can theoretically see this thing if they're looking in exactly the right place. And with the publication of this new paper today, they are now going to start to look in earnest.
How much further out there is this planet X than the rest of the planets in the solar system? I mean, it's
well, so Pluto we think of as the really out at the very edge, the very farthest thing that you could call a planet, even though we don't anymore. And
I'm still supporting Pluto's right to be a planet.
But this thing is 5 times further out than Pluto.
Fascinating. Is there any chance it's not a planet?
No, there's always. It's very foolish to say no chance because you know, you just don't know what you don't know. But the odds are looking very, very good.
60 billion miles from the sun.
Yep.
Amazing stuff. Michael Lemonick, thank you so much. Fascinating stuff.
Great, thanks.
Pluto, the sometimes planet, may be hiding a pretty huge secret. Well, two huge secrets, actually. Astronomers in Spain believe that hiding behind Pluto, obscured from our view, are two additional giant planets. Spanish scientists in Madrid discovered the potential for the two massive celestial bodies at the outer reaches of our solar system after studying strange patterns in the orbit of rocky objects around Pluto, including the newly discovered dwarf planet 2012 VP113. Scientists believe the first hidden world would be about 10 times the mass of Earth. They believe that this planet is moving in resonance with a bigger planet that is somewhere between Mars and Jupiter in size and would orbit 200 times the Earth's distance from the Sun. But can we ever conclusively confirm the existence of these two planets? Well, Scott Shepard at the Carnegie Institution for Science had this to say. As there are only a few of these extremely distant objects known, it's hard to say anything definitive about the number or location of any distant planets. However, in the near future, we should have more objects to work with to help us determine the structure of the outer solar system. So there you have it. Time will tell.
Now, here's the asteroid story. An asteroid the size of the Rose Bowl, more than 1,000 feet across, fields its way toward the Earth right now. It'll come by first in 2029, and we'll see it up there. It'll be closer than our satellites, a thing the size of the Rose Bowl hurtling through the air. And then it comes again in 2036, and that's when it may get interesting. The debate over just how close it'll get is sparking some serious debate between Russian scientists and American scientists. Here's a satellite picture of the thing. This is from, well, with this and, you know, this tells you nothing. But you see it there? I don't know, that circly thing in the middle, maybe? This was from 2004. It doesn't look very intimidating here. Both sides seem to agree that in 3 decades, the asteroid will fly very close to Earth. But Russian scientists warn that our planet's gravity could change the asteroid's path and set it on a collision course. NASA scientists say there is a minuscule, little bitty chance of that happening. 1 in 250,000. Better than winning the lotto, and somebody will. Joining us now, Michio Kaku. He's a theoretical physics professor at City University of New York, CUNY. He's also the author of Physics of the Future, and a new book coming out in about a month, and we'll tell you about that in about a month. So, good to see you. 2029, it flies by underneath the satellites.
That's right. Mark it on your calendar. Friday the 13th, April 2036.
Well, that's the second pass.
On the second pass, right? The first pass, like you said, it comes right underneath our satellites. You can actually see it whizzing right overhead.
Wow.
And on the second pass, it might actually be a nation buster. It'll take out Germany. It'll take out France, England.
Not England.
Right. Or the entire northeast of the United States. It'll hit with the force of 100,000 Hiroshima bombs.
Really? If it hits.
If it hits, right. It's a catastrophe beyond human comprehension. And the head of the Russian Space Agency has said that the Russian scientists should think of some ways of deflecting it or handling this menace in 2036.
What are we going to do? Shoot it with a laser?
Well, everyone thinks we'll send Bruce Willis out there with the space shuttle. But the space shuttle can't even reach outer space. We're phasing it out, and the space shuttle only spins wheels around the planet Earth. It cannot even go to deep space. We need a new booster rocket to take us out there.
Maybe China will build us one.
Maybe, and then we have to nudge it out of the way. The farther it is, the easier it is to push it out with rockets so it'll miss the planet Earth.
In our last video, we discussed how the Earth is experiencing an enormous increase in volcanic eruptions in just the past few months. And we also said that the numbers of earthquakes registering 6 or above on the scale has also risen dramatically at the same time. We also mentioned that those individuals living along the West Coast, and specifically in the region of the Pacific Northwest, should be preparing for a mega quake followed by a massive tsunami of catastrophic proportions, as well as the probability of violent volcanic eruptions in their neighborhood. Now, we mention these scenarios not because we think it is going to happen or we believe it is going to happen, but because we are being warned by both seismologists and volcanologists that it is going to happen, just as it did occur 315 years ago in the year 1700. Now, it may be easy to dismiss this as just a coincidence in the timing of events, except for the realization that the events we are seeing unfold in this region, and for that matter across the globe, are getting progressively worse. And we have presented the scientific charts to you in our previous videos that argue this point, that the Earth is getting extremely unstable. Of course, it is just as easy to imagine a host of reasons why this is happening. We can say it's a natural occurrence. The Earth is going through a cycle of events. Or the sun is to blame for the increase in activity, which is exactly what agencies such as NASA and the USGS would want you to believe. But the evidence is suggesting that something more complex is causing these dramatic Earth changes. And that something, we believe, is a rogue system of planetary bodies that have entered into our own solar system and are presently creating havoc here on Earth. But if you have been paying attention to what is developing in the solar system, it is not only planet Earth that is being affected by the presence of these mysterious objects. It is virtually all of the planets in our solar system that are being affected in some manner or another. In fact,
in this installment of the weatherspace.com video edition, developments on Jupiter has transformed the appearance of the solar system's largest planet. One of the two main cloud belts on Jupiter has completely disappeared. Now, we're not talking about fading here, folks. It has completely disappeared. Take a look at these two pictures. They say it's a big event, but they're monitoring the system very closely, and they do not fully yet understand what is going on. Of course not. We don't know what's going on. We haven't lived for millions of years to see all this stuff that goes on with the planet. Something might be going on with the solar system that we don't know about. This picture shows before, August 4th, 2009. You see the belt, and then take a look at after, on May 8th, 2010. Look at that. The belt has completely disappeared. Now, what would trigger something to disappear? In my opinion, it will probably be something to do with the weather patterns, probably the upper atmosphere messing around with the planet's clouds. But guess what? Now that doesn't stop right there. If it affects Jupiter, can it be a global event? They always say the sun controls the weather, so we might be looking at some kind of an event where maybe the Earth patterns might just change. The upper level pattern in the Earth just might change our climate over the next, maybe 20 years or so. But this is happening so fast. Before, in 2009, Jupiter had a belt. After that, now in 2010, it doesn't. Let's keep an eye on our own planet.
In fact, if you've been observant, you will have noticed that our neighbor planets of Venus, Jupiter, and Mars have been increasingly luminant. In other words, they've been much brighter in the night sky. Certainly much brighter than what I can recall as a young boy who was so fascinated in the stars and the planets. What other than another presence in our solar system, whether it be some sort of dwarf planet, a failed star, or a binary companion to our sun, that could cause these changes that are occurring not only in our solar system, but here on planet Earth. So, are governments across the world aware of its presence? Do they know exactly what is happening to our planet? And are they making preparations for what they expect or anticipate will take place? Have you heard about the program called Cascadia Rising? You probably haven't heard of this if you're one of those individuals who just relies on mainstream media for your news. But then again, you're probably not going to hear much about this from the cable news networks because it isn't in their best interest to let you know. Cascadia Rising is a large-scale disaster preparedness exercise that will be conducted by the government agency FEMA starting next week between June 7th and the 10th in the Pacific Northwest. So, of course, the question arises as to why an exercise of such significance is about to take place by a federal agency. Certainly an exercise that's going to be very expensive and time-consuming. Why conduct this if that particular agency wasn't concerned or even knew that something catastrophic or life-threatening was about to happen? Now, we are being told, according to the report, that this preparedness exercise will be conducted in such a way as to simulate a 9.0 magnitude quake along the Cascadia subduction zone, which quake would be followed by a tsunami that would create waves more than 50 feet in height. Okay, so think about that. 50 feet, that's approximately the height of a 5-story building, which by any means would be absolutely devastating to any type of structure or edifice which stands in its way. The drill will bring together local and state emergency responders, FEMA, and a number of military organizations and government first responders. The drill comes as a number of top scientists are warning the Cascadia subduction zone is a disaster waiting to happen. While most people have heard of the San Andreas fault line in California, very little attention has been given to the Cascadia subduction zone. But when compared to the San Andreas, the Cascadia subduction zone is a much larger threat and a more scarier threat than is the San Andreas fault. The Cascadia Rising Preparedness Drill will test plans that have been put together over the last couple of years. Plans that expects in the neighborhood, if not more than, 14,000 deaths, 30,000 injuries, and the complete devastation of the Pacific Northwest coast. According to planners, the quake could devastate the region for decades and could displace 1 million people from Northern California to Southern Canada. So, how bad could it get? Well, over 7 million people throughout the region could be affected by the Cascadia subduction zone. When the quake hits, the force is expected to cause liquefaction across large areas of the porous region. And in areas that aren't liquefied, the force of the quake could cause huge landslides, devastating destruction to thousands of bridges and buildings, and could cause as many as 30,000 avalanches in Seattle alone. Now, the following model, which we're going to show to you here in just a second, was created by the NWS Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, also referred to as PTWC. It's based off of modeling from an earthquake that hit the area on January the 27th of the year 1700, approximately 315 years ago, which caused a massive tsunami that actually struck the coast of Japan. So traveled for thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean. Now, officials are planning for a disaster unlike anything we've ever seen. The response will include the deployment of civilian and military personnel and will exceed anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. So think about that for a minute. Anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. What in the world could cause such a response by our government? So the response will be orders of magnitude larger than Hurricane Katrina or Superstorm Sandy. Now, this is according to Lieutenant Colonel Clayton Braun, who's with the Washington State Army National Guard. So here we have an immediate call to action from state and federal agencies that indicates there is an imminent threat to both life and infrastructure as a result of the instability of the region. But one thing's missing here. They fail to indicate in the report as to the rush to action here. Why is it so important that this be conducted at this time? What is the significance of conducting the exercise now, as opposed to, let's say, last year or the year before, or 5 years ago, or for that matter, 2 years from now? What is so important about this date? What is it that they seem to know that the rest of us aren't aware of or aren't being told about? Is it possible that they are preparing for what is coming our way from the dark regions of space? I first heard of Planet X in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 incident, when a lot of people were searching the internet to see if there was some sort of correlation between the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the prophecies of Nostradamus. It was during this time frame that millions of people were also searching Google to learn what they could about these mysterious rogue planets that could wreak havoc on the other planets in our solar system. Now, the likelihood of such an event occurring in our lifetime had for a long time been considered nothing more than a wild conspiracy theory. But now people were actually becoming genuinely concerned about its existence and about what effect it would have on our planet. In 2009, I interviewed a gentleman, J.R. Moore, who has a national radio show. In the interview, he indicated that he had spoken with some retired naval brass who were moving to the Ozarks for safety. So you say, why the Ozarks? Well, for one thing, the region is more than 1,000 feet above sea level, and thus it would be a safe location from rising waters, which is something that is expected to occur if we have a flyby of the Planet X system. Now, that interview was published on our YouTube playlist, and it's published under the title Nibiru, Truth, and the Global Warming Cover-Up. And I would encourage you to listen to it in its entirety, as it does tell us a very interesting story of what preparations the government is making, or has made, to get ready for the passage of the Planet X system. Now, Russia believes that this system exists, and they are presently building shelters in Moscow and throughout the country in preparation for its flyby. In the United States, preparations have been underway for many years in anticipation of the passage of the Planet X system. One of these massive underground facilities is believed to be located beneath the Denver International Airport, but it is off limits to both the public and the media as a top secret facility. There has also been considerable controversy revolving around the deaths or the mysterious disappearances of individuals in the scientific community who have become whistleblowers with regard to Planet X or a dwarf star in our solar system. Some of you may already know the story behind Dr. Robert Harrington, the chief astronomer of the U.S. Naval Observatory, who died before he could publicize the fact that Planet X is approaching our solar system. Many feel his death is part of a cover-up, one in which government agencies quickly moved to conceal the most earth-shaking discovery in history. So we are certain that the studies that Harrington was conducting in his quest to locate Planet X are very real. But whether he actually died from cancer or was silenced by the elite is still a question worth investigating today. Now, on the flip side of the coin, two reports were recently published by a news site called someonesbones.com. One of those reports states that in 2010, an ominous YouTube video posted by a user calling himself Nibiru Shock provided the world with the first substantiated images of the Nibiru system. These images, which are being shown here now, were reportedly substantiated by Marshall Masters, who is a former science features editor for CNN News and who is now a Planet X researcher who has a website which is yowusa.com. That's Y-O-W USA.com. The persona known as Nibiru Shock was reportedly proven to be Professor Ronald Jason Patrick, a scientist who worked at the Australian Astronomical Observatory, who apparently died in an airplane crash earlier this year. Now, the other report, and the one which has sparked a firestorm across astronomical and conspiracy theory internet communities, is the one that involves an individual named Dr. Ronald Shimshuk. Now, I have to admit that I have never heard of this individual, and very little is actually known about him, other than what is being reported on various alternative news sites. Now, he reportedly is an MIT graduate. His credentials include 7 years at McDonnell Douglas, 4 years employment at Boeing, and 3 at NASA. He also was employed as an astronomical consultant at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. Now, according to the alleged interview that was conducted with Dr. Shimshuk, he stated that the Nibiru system is very real, that it is essentially a solar system of its own which will intersect with our solar system. Now, at its heart is a brown dwarf star approximately 1/8 the size of our Sun. The brown dwarf is orbited by 7 planets or moons, some smaller than our moon and some larger than Earth. Of greatest concern is the third planet of this system, which is several times Earth's mass with a nickel-iron core. It is predicted that this planet will pass within 0.3 AU of Earth, or roughly within 27 million miles of our planet. Now, a follow-up interview with this astrophysicist was supposed to take place with YouTube personality Steve Olson, but Dr. Shimshuk somehow mysteriously disappeared shortly into that interview. Now, we have been able to locate a website that has recently appeared on the internet that details who this individual is and contains a validated photograph of Nibiru, which is said to be the first substantiated image taken in the northern hemisphere, which we are showing to you here now. It is important to note that I'm using the term reportedly in referring to these articles because they can't be substantiated. We're uncertain of their authenticity or the accuracy of the report, and furthermore, I have been unable to find any credible information as it relates to either of these individuals that can corroborate their existence in any way or the information they are attempting to provide to the public. Another story that is sweeping the social media circuit, and one which, if true, could have been a deliberate attempt to inform the public, is one that involves Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. The report says the following: Queen Elizabeth stunned BBC production staff yesterday while preparing to deliver the Queen's speech at the state opening of Parliament, hinting that she is planning to abdicate the throne and flee the United Kingdom, a BBC insider claims. Quote, "One is making the necessary preparations to abandon ship," Her Majesty said. "A violent storm is coming, the likes of which Britain has never seen." Her Majesty was speaking to her advisors while taking on the Parliament robe of state and the imperial state crown in the robing chamber. However, she was already wearing a microphone, and her comments were heard by the whole gallery. She seemed angry that she had to remain neutral in her speech. She said there is solid intelligence from military top brass that if we don't Brexit, there is an inevitable World War III scenario that will play out, the insider said. World War II will seem like a bump in the road compared to this. I must warn my subjects, the Queen said. The line was cut off at this point, and BBC production staff were urgently addressed by the director, John Kirby. He said he had been warned by BBC executives that the head of state had been shooting her mouth off a lot lately, and that we must all ignore, forget, delete from our memories everything that we have heard from her. By warning advisers that she has made the necessary preparations to flee the country, is she hinting that she has inside information of the darkest kind? Of course, it is all speculation, more than likely coming from the British tabloids. But then we can't be too certain of that either, as the heads of state have been acting quite peculiar these days, sort of on edge and a bit uneasy, and yet we're not really sure of the reasons for their odd behavior. But until it becomes known to all, we can only wait it out. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this presentation. There is good reason to believe that the Nibiru Planet X system is entering into or nearing the inner solar system, which would place it somewhere between Jupiter and Mars, which is the outermost of the 4 planets which comprise the inner solar system. In addition to the tremendous numbers of volcanoes erupting in recent weeks, and the increased numbers of earthquakes greater than 6.0, which we already talked about in this video, there are a number of other reasons to consider in making this analysis. One being the tremendous increase in asteroid and fireball activity since the beginning of 2016, as this chart is showing you. If the Planet X system is approaching the asteroid belt, which is situated between Jupiter and Mars, then this could explain the influx in cosmic activity as of late, since the tail of this system will be thrusting these objects out of their normal orbit within the belt and outwards towards the Earth. The fact that the Earth's magnetic field is collapsing should be of great concern to us all, because it foretells of a pole shift that will punch holes in the ozone layer, destroy power grids, cause extreme weather events across the globe, and weaken our ability to fight the effects of damaging rays. The closer that the Planet X system gets, it less likely that our magnetic field will be able to withstand its powerful influence on the Earth's core, resulting in a catastrophic flip of the poles. The most compelling reasons can most likely be seen in the following videos, which I'm going to present to you, which I believe are very convincing captures of the Nibiru complex within our solar system. Now, I would like to thank those individuals who were diligent in capturing these remarkable images and sharing them with us here on the social media sites. Now, this first video, which was posted in our video comment section, was captured in the Pacific Northwest and depicts what has been commonly referred to as 2 suns. Now, it's a very bright planet. We believe it is the innermost planet in the Planet X system, which revolves around Nemesis, the companion star to our sun. So take a look at this video. Now, in observing this video, you will see that this planet Helion moves with the Sun in a natural manner behind the clouds and is an object that generates its own light, thus ruling out any form of lens flare or atmospheric anomaly. There has been several observations of this planet in the past month, including this capture from December of 2015, as well as the live webcam capture of this large gaseous planet from São Vicente in Brazil in April of this year. The next video is one that I consider to be one of the most definitive captures of the Planet X system, as this panorama view taken in Alaska will show. In observing this video, you will notice that the webcam first records the setting sun, at which time another very bright object, possibly a binary dwarf star or companion to our sun, appears and also proceeds to set over the horizon, followed by a trail of smaller planetary objects in succession, a tail that has often been referred to as the string of pearls, which are now appearing in Skycam videos around the world. This is by all means an incredible capture and defies explanation. Now, when I say that the video defies explanation, it means that it would be very difficult for debunkers to claim that the objects of interest are just lens flare or sky anomalies or some sort of refraction or reflection coming from the web camera itself. As you can see from the video, our sun has already set below the horizon when the objects of interest begin entering into the picture as a separate light source, one after another in succession. Are you aware of the blue star Kachina? It has been appearing in the sky recently. In Frank Waters' writings on Hopi mythology, the blue star Kachina is a spirit that will signify the coming of the beginning of the new world by appearing in the form of a blue star. The blue star Kachina is said to be the 9th and final sign before the day of purification, described as a catastrophe or a world-engulfing cataclysm that will lead to the purification of planet Earth. As you can see in these recently published images, it seems the Hopi prophecy is coming to fruition, as in a short period a mysterious blue star or planet has appeared in the skies around the world. Last month, a strange blue star or planet was seen in the skies over Arizona, Spain, and in the British Isles. As you can see, they all appear to represent the same blue object. Hopi were instructed to tell of the great purification just ahead of the time when humankind would once again become highly civilized, tending to become careless and leading us to self-destruction. They said that along the way, the industrialized world will have certain problems. People will be uncomfortable because of the changing times, and they will have to make adjustments to find new lifestyles. It is said that after the appearance of the blue Kachina, the red Kachina, which is known to be the planet Nibiru, the outermost planet in the Planet X system, will come and will bring the day of purification. On this day, the earth and all life as we know it will change forever. It may be that the Hopi Indians were correct in their prophetic teachings about the purification of this world. Now, the last video we're going to present here was provided to Skywatch Media News in early March of this year by one of our Facebook followers. As you can see, there is a very clear capture of what appears to be the blue Kachina to the far right of the sun. Now, this video is very similar to the images that we just presented to you in this video.
Well, we don't get up till late because we're retired. 9 o'clock I heard a knock on the door. It was a chap from next door. He was out watering his tomato plants and he said, "Do you want the good news or the bad news?" I said,
"The good news is you got a swimming pool?"
"Yeah," and he come out and got a hole in the ground, you know.
Oh my goodness. It's hard to explain, you know. A hole in the backyard. And as we've been out here watching it all morning with our neighbours, it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think, when's it going to stop?
What it is old workings, old mine workings. We've identified the fact that there's a shaft put in here many, many years ago, and we've been in contact with the mines department. They're sending a team up here.
Summer, and there can't actually be snow somewhere in the United States. Can there? Yes, there can. Mauna Kea Observatory, that's over in Hawaii, of course, and as if it's not crazy enough that we have snow somewhere in the United States, how about the fact that
Becky, because the weather woes never seem to end in this country for weeks, even months. People in this country have been really just praying for one thing, and that is for the monsoons to arrive, because after 2 years of drought, their farmland has been desecrated. There's been this heat wave that's been sweeping across the country, killing hundreds of people. And now it's the monsoons that are killing people. As you mentioned, 90 people killed just in a matter of 24 hours, mainly in this one state of Bihar. Most of the people who died were farmers, because the is the time as the monsoons arrive when farmers are out planting.
Don't think you'll be disappointed with this. Not a spot on lens, not a spider. There's no legs with this. And they're on 4 cameras at the same time. And now we can see that it stayed in there for 1 hour. And then it bounces back. Again, it is in a orbit around Nibiru that looks appear to be coming and going. So it's going above and below the horizon as this thing is coming at us and away from us as it approaches us and then retreats as it goes around Nemesis. Next, I'm going to show you, please pay attention to the time here. This is the second at the same time. No, this is over Italy, and now we've got Switzerland at the same time. We've got the same object. And let me do the time lapse on this one. Yes. Look how big it's getting. You can start to make out the plasma tail. And the camera setting here looks like 400 ISO. Not quite visible with the naked eye. Look at that. That thing's just getting bigger. And you can almost make out the redness of this thing. Oh my gosh. I've never seen this thing so big. It's getting close. Wow. We continue running the time lapse here, and then it disappears, and it reappears again. Again, it's the shadow. It's still facing the northwest. The actual planet is in the north southeast.
What you see here, everybody, is a thing called SunCalc. And what it does, what this program does, is it shows you where the sunrise and the sunset should be relative to your position. So an example here, this is where I am right now, where this red dot is. This is where I'm located. And basically it's saying that the sunset should happen at this, or the sunrise should happen on the yellow line, and the sunset should happen on this red line. Okay? Now, here is the important thing that I want to bring up right away this morning. The North Star, first of all, was off by 3 to 5 degrees, as confirmed by about 30 subscribers over the weekend. So anybody that knows where the North Star should be based on fixed points on the ground, like me, my story was I go out and I've been checking the North Star's position for 3 years. It has not changed for 3 years, okay? It stays in the same place winter, spring, summer, and fall. It's always in the same place, okay? The way you can find the North Star is you take the 2 ends of the Big Dipper and draw a line. So our position, fixed position relative to the North Star right now is off by 3 to 5 degrees to the west, Wayne. Or to the east.
To the east.
Yes. In my observation, and I have a solid one, and then I've gotten confirmation from several different people. So what does this mean? Why is Steve so freaked out about the North Star? The reason Steve is freaked out about the North Star is it's the one fixed point that we all can, everybody in the Earth, can validate the North Star being in a position if they have 2 fixed points on the Earth. Okay? I have now enough information to tell you from astrophysicists, astronomers, and people that have given us feedback at WSO, they all tell me that we're correct, Wayne. That the North Star has moved 3 to 5 degrees to the east.
The implications of this, Steve, is, well, it's very disturbing.
Yes. The second point I wanted to bring up, and that's what the SunCalc thing is for, is to say that you see that red line, Wayne, that points off at about rough, this is a rough 45 or just off 45 degree angle here. See that?
I see it, Steve.
From sunrise to sunset. So it is normal for us to see the sun setting in the northwest, and it's normal for us to see it rising in the northeast. First of all, that's not unusual for this time of year, you guys, okay? What is unusual, though, and can you see my little hand?
Yes.
When I looked at the sunset for the last 2 nights, the sunset has been here, where my hand is. About 22 degrees, Wayne.
Which, by the way, Steve, as you know, when you called me on Saturday, and I immediately went in and checked my compasses, I registered and recorded the same anomaly. And here in the Denver area, we were off by about 22 to 27 degrees to the northwest. And it didn't change. In fact, Steve, I posted on my YouTube channel a recording of where I actually filmed the needle of the compass actually oscillating back and forth. And that was Saturday.
Yeah, and by the way, and I won't bore everybody with the data, you know, because it is pretty boring data, but that has been confirmed by several as well. That did after we talked on Saturday, I reached out to a couple of the other subscribers, and they all confirmed that they were also having the same magnetic anomaly.
I actually know a pilot friend who told us yesterday that he's a private pilot, that he can no longer rely on his compass. I said, well, how do you get from point A to point B? He says that they use a gyro software that is more directly linked to GPS as opposed to trying to follow magnetic north.
Yeah, let me, having been an ex-avionics guy, I can give you a little insight into that. There's a thing called a gyroscopic internal navigation system that, yeah. So those systems don't even require GPS, by the way, Wayne.
Well, thank you. See, I'm a novice. I ride in them. I don't drive them.
Right. No, that's okay. It's a very strange thing that I'm an expert in it because the Air Force made me one.
Good.
So we used to navigate with our primary navigation before GPS came online was a thing called PAC-AN. The civilian world has a similar thing, and basically those are fixed points on the Earth that transmit signals that basically are waypoints, okay, across the country. So you can navigate as a commercial military or as a military pilot. You can navigate by PAC-AN, you can navigate by compass, you can navigate with GPS, and then internal navigation. And then the last thing is called internal navigation system, which is a gyroscopic device that uses the Earth itself as its waypoint. But doesn't rely on celestial observations or anything like that. It just knows where you are relative to fixed.
Hi. So this is Solar System Scope, and we can see this is the actual time and planet where we're at right now with our universe. I'd like to show you a couple things where we're at and where these objects actually are. As I said before, so if you click on this little Earth, click on here, and then we can see the different views. And most of these were over Italy and Germany. And we can see when we click on the scope here, when I said that we were looking at the shadows to the northwest, that would have been right about here. And at this time, so everything I'm doing is all happened within 30 minutes. It is 6:40 Pacific time. So I'll leave a link in the description because it's happening now. And so the southeast is where this whole thing's going as it settles down, I think. Just about in here somewhere. It's probably, again, this is our horizon. This is our Earth's ecliptic plane. Through the plasma field, which is going to stop the Earth, pole shift. The rich people are going to hide in their cities, which a lot of Christians believe that this is going to be a six-seal judgment, and I'm one of them. And how can I stay calm? Because the world is not falling apart. Everything is falling into place, just the way God told you it was. So I wanted to show you one other planetary alignment that I think is important. And, you know, I'm just looking at the elections, predictive programming, Neptune, the signs. I look at Bible prophecies where I get these alignments. And one alignment that I find very interesting is the Sun, Moon, Earth, Neptune in the Aquarius on August 31st. I've heard this date before, this alignment with Neptune, because it's a water planet, like in the days of Noah. I think they had an ancient flood. When the water planet is in alignment with Aquarius, this is like a time clock.
People were confirmed dead and 13 others remain missing after heavy rain caused flash floods and landslides in East China's Jiangxi province, South China's Hunan, Guizhou, Guangdong provinces, and Guangxi Autonomous Region. According to the local government, as of 6 p.m. on Wednesday, floods had left 3 people dead in Jiangxi. So far, 21,000 people in the province have been relocated, and another 10,000 people are in dire need of assistance. In Hunan, continuous rain resulted in swollen rivers, landslides, and mud rock flows. The Provincial Flood Control and Drought Relief Headquarters said on Wednesday that 3 people died in Hengshan County. Meanwhile, 4 others were reported missing. About 530 houses collapsed and nearly 12,000 people were evacuated. In Guangxi, 1 person was killed when a house collapsed in torrential rain. 2 were swept away by floods, while another was buried by a landslide. The rain and ensuing disasters also destroyed over 700 houses, ruined more than 20,000 hectares of crops, and 4...
We begin in Ethiopia, where the death toll from a landslide at a rubbish dump in the capital has risen to more than 60, and there are fears it may still go up. Rescue officials are still searching for dozens of bodies trapped under the kosher landfill. CGTN's Girum Chala has this update from Addis Ababa.
Dozens of makeshift homes are buried under the mountain of garbage behind me. People have been dumping their rubbish here for decades. It's believed around 150 people were here when the landslide took place on Saturday night. Dozens of people are buried under tons of waste, as you can see behind me there. People had been making a living by picking through the rubbish dump for useful items. Some had even made permanent homes for themselves around here. It's believed children are among the dead. Search and rescue operations continue here, but rescue workers face a tough task. Bulldozers have to carefully remove the rubbish over there. The heavy machinery could cause further slides as well. For now, they operate in the hope of finding survivors.
Tornadoes touching down in southwest Florida. This happened overnight, and this was the scene in Punta Gorda, where an EF1 tornado touched down on Aspen Road East. The storm going through one family's yard, destroying their barn, sending chunks of metal flying, even cutting their horses loose.
A lot of memories of this barn. Had it ever since I was 13. Now it's gone.
Went out with him, and the other horses were loose, running around, and it's very dark.
Well, the storm also flipping the family's truck over on its head. All the family's animals are expected to be okay, though one duck was lost. The family says they're working to clean up the mess and rebuild.
China's National Observatory has raised its orange alert for frozen roads in the country's western Tibet autonomous region. A snowstorm and frigid temperatures have led to road and highway closures. A blizzard swept the Shikaze Ali and Shannan areas on Friday and Saturday. Snow drifts were 30 to 50 centimeters deep in the urban areas of several counties in Shikaze, while the power supply in downtown Jilong was also temporarily cut down. Local authorities are clearing the roads, so they also distributed food and livestock feed in advance to help villagers brace for the snowstorm.
Maurice Christine, good evening. It is low tide here, but high water on the Great South Bay, where streets flooded and folks were forced to stay inside. Cars caught in salt water, a big problem. The rainy, wintry mix melted, and even several hours after noon's high tide here on Suffolk's South Shore, streets in low-lying areas were impassable.
All eyes are on that massive storm. Take a live look at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The snow starting to come down right now. The roads messy there this morning. They're bracing for up to half a foot of snow today.
Highway havoc in the Midwest, a late winter storm slamming millions from Iowa to Minnesota.
Awful. I didn't expect it to get this bad. It's intense. So crazy.
Plummeting temperatures, freezing freeways, sending cars sliding off the road and into each other. The treacherous conditions causing this 24-car pileup outside of Minneapolis. Wind and waves from Lake Ontario, along with freezing temperatures, engulfed this New York house in ice. Surprisingly, this isn't out of the ordinary. Delays in the Twin Cities as airlines scrambled to de-ice planes stuck on the tarmac. A frigid blast blowing across the region overnight, dumping close to 10 inches of snow from the Dakotas to Iowa. Another 24 inches expected in some areas by Wednesday. But merciless sub-freezing temperatures, disastrous near Detroit. 65,000 people in the area still without power. And officials now say carbon monoxide poisoning from generators have left 2 people dead. In this northern Detroit home, a mother and her 2 young children hospitalized. This morning, across the Northeast, 60 million residents are bracing for the winter wallop as it barrels.
Now to Peru and those tragic mudslides, the death toll rising there following intense rains that have left thousands homeless, but some heroic rescues giving many hope. Here's ABC's Marcy Gonzalez.
In the fast-moving, muddy water and piles of dangerous debris, a woman almost washed away. As she tries to free herself, her hair seemingly gets stuck before she finally pulls herself to safety. One of many lives narrowly spared from Peru's raging flooding and mudslides that officials say have killed more than 70 people so far this year and left more than 70,000 people homeless. Tonight, as intense downpours overwhelm towns and send rivers pouring over their banks, desperate rescues are underway. Near the normally dry capital city of Lima, dozens of people crowd onto rooftops above washed-out streets. Zip lines being used to bring families and pets over fast-rising water. Others are forming human chains to get to dry ground. Tonight, half of the country is declared a state of emergency. Officials say this is the worst flooding in Peru in nearly 2 decades, with much more rain still expected.
آمبولانس ماشینه.
Started taking everything up. My trash cans were flying everywhere. My tent was flying everywhere. I was kind of hanging on it, like almost like a monkey in a sense, trying to hold everything down.
There is one video taken by Louisiana resident Danny Garceau on April the 1st. The video has garnered a great deal of attention. I would say that this is one of the most convincing captures of the star system that I have analyzed over the years. The brown dwarf in a very rare appearance as it orbits our sun in retrograde fashion. And there was also a series of images taken on March 16th and 17th, which are equally incredible, showing the presence of a celestial body. These images are posted on our Facebook page and can be viewed close up. And be sure to follow our page for daily updates on the Planet X Nibiru system. Leave a comment or a message, and as a source to share your images and videos.
April 4th, Tuesday, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 2017. What we're looking at is the Gulf of Mexico rainbow loop is what they call this. And you can still see a persistent disturbance down here in the Florida Panhandle. It's slowly moved across Louisiana, southern Mississippi, Alabama, and it's been hitting Florida and Georgia the past couple of days. And it was so intense in Georgia yesterday that they've gone ahead and declared ahead of tomorrow's storms, because it's predicted to cause a lot of damage and destruction in southwestern Georgia tomorrow, that they've declared a state of emergency right here in Albany, or actually south of Albany, in Dougherty County. A full-blown state of emergency in Dougherty County ahead of the severe weather, and it hasn't even happened yet. And it's because the weather that they got yesterday was so bad, so strong, so intense, that they're not taking any chances. Here's what the local news had to say about it right here. And you can see the maps of what they're predicting for tomorrow. They are in a moderate to high tornado path right through here, and Albany's right in the middle of it. Check it out. Here's what they've got to say.
State of emergency has been declared for Dougherty County ahead of tomorrow's storm.
The National Weather Service shows Dougherty County could possibly see strong, long-track tornadoes with destructive wind gusts as high as 70 miles per hour. Now, these weather events could happen throughout the day tomorrow.
And we want to tell you more on the details on what exactly a disaster declaration means. Number one, the county emergency operations plans will be activated. Number two, the emergency operations ordinances that Dougherty County commissioners adopted will be operative.
It's getting just off the charts. Everywhere you look around the globe, there's some sort of wild weather going on. If it's not giant hail, it's strong winds, straight line winds, dust storms, tornadoes, floods, landslides, mudslides. It just goes on and on and on. And it doesn't stop. It only seems to intensify. So there's already a state of emergency in place in Dougherty County, which is south of Albany, Georgia, right here, for tomorrow. And the storms haven't even hit yet. But they're brewing, and they know it. And based off of what it did yesterday, they're not taking any chances.
Another sign that this is in play. Record snow, blizzards. Newfoundland, eastern Canada, getting over 120 centimeters of snow. And for those of you in the U.S., 2.5 centimeters equals 1 inch. A couple images for you here. Snow up to the rooftops of homes. Now in Canada, when it's reported in the news as an unbelievable amount of snow, and this is in Gander, which also had record snows 2 years ago. Seems to be a trend in that area. Here's the actual depth of some of the snow on top of the cars. And all of you hearing about the melting sea ice, oh, it's going to melt in and we'll use all the Northwest Passage, and it's definitely disappearing, the sea ice, or so you've been told. Atlantic Ferry, stuck in sea ice off Cape Breton. This off the IceAgeNow.info newsfeed. Nova Scotia Ferry, stuck. They're not really sure when they can get it out. They're sending an icebreaker right now to try to escort it out of this slush pack ice. Image here for you of the escort ship trying to break it free right now and cut a channel through there. Cape Breton here on the map for you, Far Eastern Maritimes. Bit north of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Satellite image for you here. If truly all the sea ice was melting, you think further south latitudes would be the first place that it would disappear, not in the Arctic Circle, which they keep claiming. How can there be so much sea ice this far south if all the ice is disappearing in the north? How can there still be ice further south? This is just simple, commonsensical stuff.
Saw that. Oh! Where are my safety glasses? Yeah. Damn, those came out of nowhere. That sucker that got me. Big Daddy. Well guys, got 3 tornadoes today and some beautiful lightning, and destroyed another window with hail, but more important news, we lost 3 storm chasers today. Kelly Williamson, Randy, the storm wranglers, were in an accident with another storm chaser named Corbin from Arizona, I believe. I didn't know him, but Kelly and I were friends, and we used to hang out and underneath the storms and talk about everything except the storms. I remember being in New Mexico with him last year, and we were looking for arrowheads and didn't find any, but we talked about getting barbecue and beer all the times, but we kept missing each other. Just last 2 days ago in Oklahoma, he and I got to hang out for a good 20-30 minutes before getting all the funnel clouds, and he was a hard worker, and he was a good storm chaser. He was just a good old boy, down-to-earth guy, and that's what made the Storm Wranglers TV show so good. And I'll miss him. And my deepest condolences go out to the families of all of them. Yeah. So I don't know what else to say, but rest in peace, guys.